rise up high, conquer fears, won't let them reside. Heartbeats pound as we take the dive. Living now feels so alive. Heart steel veins glowing bright. Fitness gone in the dead of night. Fading game, we got the sight. Crushing finance, career out of sight. Man up now, we own it true. Breaking change, just me and you. Success stories everywhere. Living life beyond compare.
What is going on, everybody? Once again, Men of Now here talking finances, since that seems to be the number one thing on everybody's mind right now. We got the tariff situation, we got the fluctuating stock market, everything's all over the place. So how do you make sense of it? So today I'm joined by our residential financial coach, Kevin. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Dealing with some bad weather here in North Carolina, but we needed it in rain. But yeah, it's scary times. It's a shame to see people such on rocky ground with their finances right now, wondering about tariffs when most of them can't even define what a tariff actually is or how it will directly affect them, if it will at all. But they seem to make that the cornerstone of talking points now. And then, yes, the fluctuation in the markets that have been happening has not been bad. I mean, it's been corrections. And I mean, I'm 46 years old. I've been through a couple of real crashes, especially 2008, that this was nothing that would compare to that. But I made it through that one. I'll make it through this one. And it should show you that if you worry about your course and how you navigate your course with patience and discipline, that you come out of it on top every time.
No, that is so true. And that's something that I've been struggling with for a while. And I'm starting to get a little bit better at that. I know one of the topics here that we're going to talk about, and guys, just to let you know, this is just a kind of a pre-show to kind of shoot the shit, give a little bit of that pre-information before we actually go into the next webinar in the series on building your wealth that Kevin has been leading. So right after this, in the Men of Now community, we are going to be diving deep, answering members' questions, and really honing in on these topics. This is just kind of the appetizer, so to say. I found with myself that for a long time, especially in the past few years, until meeting guys like you and really maturing a little bit on understanding the power of money over time, that there is no quick way to win. Everybody thinks, oh, like you can just win the lottery, or that person just got lucky because they invested in this stock at the right time, or they just won a jackpot at the casino. Like there's just something that happened. No, true wealth is built with that. What do we want to call it? I mean, yes, it's determination, it's patience. I would say it's patience.
Discipline over time. That's the thing. A lot of people worry about what they're making and how their money's doing rather than what they're putting into it. And that's where most people falter, because they, like you said, it doesn't happen fast enough, or all you see, especially on TikTok or YouTube, is, I went from working at a gas station to now making $25,000 a month by doing XYZ. And for one, that's not true, because if anybody did that, why would they be going on there trying to tell everybody else how to do it? No, they're trying to get you to buy a course so they can make maybe $2,500 a month. But that's what people see, or the occasional lottery winner, or the occasional person that does invest in the right thing at the right time and within 6 months has an ungodly amount of money. Unfortunately, if you look at the history of those types of people, find them in 7 years, they're broke again. So using the tried and true methods that people that you don't hear about, like the 60-year-old millionaire that probably never made over $75,000 a year as a career while he was working, but now has $3 million in the bank because he used compound interest, he used dividends, and he used discipline over time of investing small increment amounts over a long period of time that built wealth for him, you're not going to hear about that guy, because that guy is living in Miami or living in Boca Raton, living his best life. That's how the best way and the truest way and the most common way to do it is. However, most people don't want to look at it like that. They want it right now. And it's a generational thing. I'm Generation X. We are known as microwave generation. So a lot of it stems from Generation X on, of wanting it now, not wanting to build it, have the patience, and let it grow, rather than let me just try 10 different things that are going to, and none of them work. So I move on. And then at the end of that, when you become 60 years old and you got $50,000 in the bank from a 401k, then you look back and say, coulda, woulda, shoulda. You
Okay.
don't get to do
No,
it.
it's a good point. And I want to come to you as we hit these different topics. So for somebody who doesn't understand what compound interest even is, because when you look at, especially with COVID times and then afterwards, everyone looks at, why do I even put my money in a savings account? Because I'm making next to nothing on my money. What is compound interest for somebody who has no idea what that really means?
Well, what compound interest is even in a savings account, which is, like you said, next to nothing, like 0.03%. Okay, say you put $1,000 in a bank account, you don't touch it, and it's at 0.03%. That means at the end of that year, you will have $1,003. Okay, yeah, that's nothing. I get that. However, you don't touch it again. Now the next year, you get that 0.3% on $1,003. So now you've got $1,006, and so on and so forth. And when you start looking into savings accounts and checking accounts, that kind of stuff, yeah, the interest rates are crap. However, you need those types of accounts to keep your liquid cash, your go-to pay bills, that kind of stuff. However, there are different accounts called high yield savings account, high yield money markets account, things like that, that pay astronomically higher than your normal checking or savings account from a credit union. Some of them up to 4%. Right now, Fidelity, I know their core government money market account for a brokerage account is 3.97%. So now if you have $1,000 in that same type of dynamics, now at the end of that year, you're going to make about $300 or $1,030, and so on and so forth, and how it grows. Now, to break it down, it's not very hard, but it does take a while to see how over time your money actually grows by just not touching it. And not many people are just going to put $1,000 in an account and just let it sit there. After that first year, now you got that, 1,030. Well, the next year you're going to put another 1,000 in there. Now you got 2,000 and then 60. And then the compound interest grows from there. And that's how compound interest works. And compound interest is probably by far the most useful tool that you can use to have your money work for you.
Great point. And shout out to Bentley. Great to see you, brother. We got to get connected again. Would love to get you involved with some of the webinars and things that we're doing out here. I have to say, man, when it comes to that compound interest, like, it's crazy. Like when I put, because I do multiple different accounts that I'm parking money in. And when I had placed a $5,000 in, I think I placed it in like Coinbase savings, where it was giving around 5% return. I'm used to getting maybe like $1 or $2 like every month. I got $12 one month, and I was like, holy crap. Like, because that's 12 times what I'm used to. And that's when it all clicked for me. It finally made sense what the point of compound interest is, because the more money in, and as it continues to carry over, you just get more and more and more. And I think a lot of the issues that we have today, just at least with culture, is that it's spend, spend, spend economy. And you really need to be thinking about this as true savings, true future savings. That's why you have your Roth IRAs and you have your savings account. And so I think it's really important that you do your due diligence to find the right places to get the highest percent return possible, and literally park it and forget it exists. I mean, that's the whole reason why we have things like CDs, certificate of deposits, where you park away that money for extended period of time at a higher than normal interest rate, so that you don't touch the money. It's like it doesn't exist. And then at the end of it all, you have more than you started with, much more than you started with. Well, not much more. It's not the same way it used to be, but you understand what I'm saying. And that's that discipline and that patience. It's very difficult to absorb, especially in America where it's a spend, spend, spend economy. But it is crazy how this stuff does compound year over year, and it's the best way to build wealth passively.
Yeah, yeah, and it works in several different ways too. Like we're going to talk about dividends and capital gains. You know, when you buy it, when you own a stock that pays a dividend, you have the option to reinvest that dividend that you're paid quarterly, monthly, semi-annually,
Well, what
or
is a
annually,
dividend? Can you
or the
explain that?
well, a dividend, very simply, is for well-established companies where however they pay their dividends, where it's quarterly, semi-annually, or annually, they share their profits with the shareholders. So if you own, 10 shares and they pay, a dollar over an annual, so for per share, you get 10 more dollars a year. And what I was going to say is you can elect to reinvest dividends back into the stock instead of having it go into your core account to have money to spend. It buys more stocks with those dividends. So over time, that's when you really start seeing compound interest and dividends play a key role in building wealth.
It's a great point. Like, I remember with everything that's been going on with Nvidia, like we've seen, because Nvidia does offer dividends, I believe, or at least I've gotten dividends from them. But with everything that went on with them and their complete skyrocket, like that's just crazy. When you know a good company and you trust in a good company, it's like Warren Buffett and like Coca-Cola, right?
Mm-hmm.
When
Yeah.
when you invest in companies, and Johnson and Johnson, when you invest in companies that do provide those dividends, and you just continue rolling it in, and you know that long term the company is going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the stock price not only goes up, but your dividends continue to build wealth. It's just it's a this is such a weird way to say it. It's a slow, fast lane to success.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's still slow,
a
but
lot of
it's
people
fast.
refer to it as a snowball effect. The longer
Mhm.
you leave it there, the more you reinvest it, the bigger it gets, and then so on and so forth. Big guys like Warren Buffett, uh, uh, Bill Gates, those guys make hundreds of millions of dollars just off dividends alone a year,
Dude.
just because they've kept their money with them. And then you brought up a good point. There's a lot of companies out there, Coca-Cola being one of them, and Johnson and Johnson. They're called S&P or aristocrat stocks that you can actually Google S&P 500 aristocrat stocks. It will tell you some of the stocks, some of the most famous stocks for consistently paying dividends since the 1980s. That means their dividends have went up since the 1980s, and they've constantly paid one throughout. So the stock might go up, the stock price might go up or down. However, they're still paying a dividend on that stock every quarter. So if you would have invested in the 80s and then now 40 years later, if you would have just owned 1,000 shares, you would probably a multi-millionaire right now. And that's another way compound interest plays into the way you build wealth over time. And then once you reach a certain age, instead of reinvesting in that stock, when they pay a dividend every quarter, you have it going through your core account, and that's passive income. So you might make $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year off one stock that you've constantly reinvested in and bought more shares in over time. And then now that's another $5,000 to $10,000 a year you can make just off one of them because you've constantly reinvested. And that can be an extra income for retirement, can be an extra way to pay your bills, be an extra way to reinvest your money in something else, because that's money that you're making, that money that you've set aside and you've disciplined yourself to keep there, to keep making money on.
Yeah, and Bentley put it such a great way. Reinvesting your dividends into a company that has strong foundations of growth is throwing gasoline onto a fire.
Exactly.
And it really is, it is beautiful. And it's something that we get impatient about. But once you have like X amount of money, and you're getting X amount of return, so like let's say you're even just getting 5% return out of your $1 million. Well, that's $50,000 additional you have each year.
Mhm.
And let's say you don't even need that. Well, that's $50,000 of spending money then. I mean, just saying, like we're going to play that example that you don't need that money. It's just parked away. But that's an extra $50,000 to spend on whatever you want, or just funnel it back in. That's
Yeah.
why when they say like the rich get richer, you're playing by the same percentage as everybody else, but because you have more in the pot, you're getting more back. And that's why it's so important. Like when I look at like how many stupid things people spend money on these days, they have to have the nicest car, they have to have the nicest house, like all these types of things, and then they got nothing in their savings.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you're just throwing that money in the savings instead and letting it compound itself and getting those great dividends from these stocks, well, like the how quickly you can get to that level where it becomes fuck you money, it's so much quicker to get there.
Yeah, well, it's a lot easier. The key that I always tell everybody: the younger you start, it's never too late to start, but the younger you start, the better off you'll be. If you take an 18-year-old and he invests $100 a month into a good ETF, good dividend paying stock, $100 a month for 20 years, and then stops, he's going to be better off than a 35-year-old that pays the same amount of money into the same fund for 40 years when he's 60 years old. And that's why starting young and starting as soon as you possibly can is key. Now if you're my age and you have never started, that doesn't mean you can't still benefit from this. However, it's going to take a little bit more discipline. It's going to take a little bit more initial investment. It's going to take a little bit more of the best way to say it is a little bit more of grief of knowing that you've got a lot of catching up to do, but you can't do it because if you're at my age, you should be making a lot more than a 22-year-old. So you have a lot more to invest and grow.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I think is so fantastic about like what we do at Menem now and talking about these types of things, one of many different topics of living your best life and being the best man that you can be is we'll give you the advice. And if you follow it, you're going to be so much better off. And it sucks that when you look at schools today, they don't teach this. They don't teach. I don't understand it.
Yeah. And that's why, it's not even a lot of young people, it's not their fault. I come from a very, lower middle class family. My parents didn't know anything about investing. You go to work, you pay your bills. When you want something, especially a car, you go to the bank, you borrow the money, and you pay it back over time with another type of interest, which does not benefit you. It benefits them. And that's the way just life is. I can remember, even having family members growing up, people like us will just always be in debt. And so when you hear things like that, especially as a young person, you start to believe that. But, the quicker you can change your mindset and develop some discipline, develop some patience, and start socking a little bit away and investing in some good, tried and true stuff, not this fly by night meme coin that you heard one guy out of the 16,000 that invested in it, he made $1 million. The rest of them lost their fucking ass. If you start with the fundamentals, buy a basic book on basic investing, learn the different ins and outs of how you can do this and have your money relatively safe, you can actually set yourself up for a great future, but you got to start now.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I remember when Dogecoin back, I don't know when it was, whether it was 2021, but whenever it like really popped and that one guy became the Dogecoin millionaire, the guy didn't sell. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. Like he didn't sell. He had everything at that point, but he didn't sell because he let ego come into play. I want to talk to you about that when it comes to ego and emotions, when it comes to investing and the amount of cash that people have. What is your opinion on that?
Explain a little bit more. What do you mean ego?
So for example, in that case, he ended up holding because he had that title as like the Dogecoin millionaire, and he was getting like podcast things, and he was like the guy. And so he didn't sell because I think that his emotions and ego got into play, where he's like, well, it could go up more, it could go up more, and maybe that kind of leads into capital gains. Selling something for a higher value than you bought. This is a lot that we talk about in the crypto markets, of the ups and downs and the market swings. I know I was just talking about it in the chat the other day, where it was showing me that just in the Coinbase account with Solana, that my overall investment was at minus $500. And you see that and you freak out and then you panic sell. But I didn't panic sell, and now I'm in the green again just by not doing anything. So I want to
I mean, you don't want to sell when it's down. But here's the thing: when it comes to crypto, okay, I have a little bit. I have XRP and I have Bitcoin. Those are the only two. It's still a fucking fake money. Okay, I know you can amass wealth out of it. But until you sell that meme coin, that crypto, that Ballet wallet that I've got sitting up there with the sats that are sitting on it for cold hard cash, it fucking really means nothing. It really does, because it can be taken away from you like that. And so, and that's why I know crypto, and that it is a viable and a legit source of currency. However, it is not. You can't go to the grocery store and buy a loaf of bread with Bitcoin. You can't. So to me, it's not real. So like, yeah, if you buy a meme coin like the whatever Doge, and you get in on early, it shoots up, and now you're worth $2 million. Basically, you're a net worth millionaire, because that's what you are. Even as an investor, you're still a net worth millionaire. The stock market could crash, and all those dividends and everything like that, that stock could crash, and you could still be in the red. You could lose all that value. You can still do that. That can still happen. But until that is sold and in your hand as cold hard cash, it's not real. But the good thing about it is you haven't lost it. You're just down. And just like when you're up, you don't really have that money. You're just up. Warren Buffett, especially 2008, the one I spoke about earlier, Berkshire Hathaway went down, I think, almost $4 billion in one day. And he was doing an interview, and they asked him, said, "How do you feel? You just lost $40 billion." He was like, "No, I haven't lost anything. I'm just down.
I haven't lost a
I haven't
cent.
sold anything." And then over time it came back up. So to speak to your point about the guy with the ego, yeah, I'm on paper. I've got this digital currency that says I'm worth, how many millions of dollars. However, when that coin crashes, yeah, it's not there. So, you got to look at it like that as an investor as well. Until that cold hard cash is in your account that you can go to the store and buy a loaf of bread, it's not really yours yet. So you're on paper. That's why there's a big difference between being a millionaire and a net worth millionaire. Somebody that has $50,000 in the bank could be a net worth millionaire. If he has three houses that are paid off and both of them worth, $400,000, he's a millionaire. However, it's in the form of drywall and 2x4s, not cold hard cash. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I was kind of saying with this. And Bentley puts it great. Something going up or down and you making or losing $1 million, it doesn't mean anything. Until you sell, the gain or loss is not realized. It's only on paper. Yeah. So zero emotion, zero panic, patience is key. I'll never forget back when, oh God, this is a while ago. This is during the crypto pump around that time as well. And my buddy showed me his one account, and he had $2 million. And for somebody who grew up, he was much lower class than I was. So for somebody to grow up in that situation and have $2 million and he's showing it to me, I'm like, dude, you need to sell half of that right now. And you know what he did? He didn't. And the entire thing crashed. So it essentially went down to his original investment of around 100,000 that he was just funneling money into over the course of like 5 years or so. So it just all went down to the original value. He made no money whatsoever, when he could have at least realized $1 million and put it aside. Just take half of it at that point in time. Why do we need to get greedy here? Because you can take $1 million, you park it in the right index fund or whatever else, and you're going to get around a 7% return. So that essentially means you're going to get an additional $70,000 per year. And based on the way he was living, he could live his entire life without having to work another day again.
Yeah.
He didn't do it.
And that's what I do. Would recommend. If you have something that shoots up, take your profits, put in something else a little bit more stable, and then so on and so forth, and then just keep the discipline. But that's like you said, it's the buy it now, and it's fun to look on your spreadsheet, and say, oh man, look what I'm worth, But besides your initial investment, that all that money could go up or go down at any time. But with good dividend paying stocks and capital gains and sure things, like high yield money market accounts that are guaranteed that 4% annually, that's a great place to put. You're not going to see the overnight Ferrari owner, but you will see the person that now when he retires, not only does it have his 401k, his IRA, his Social Security, now he's got a huge amount of funds that pay dividends that he can use as income as well. So it's the more income streams that you can have in retirement and later on in life, the better off you'll be.
Absolutely.
We got to get ready to wrap because we've got the webinar behind the paywall. We're going to do that on Zoom. Bentley, it was great to see you, man. I need to get up with you, and I apologize that I haven't reached out here lately, but it's great to see you, man. I hope everything's going great.
Good stuff. Guys, if you want to join the Men of Now community, link down below. You can go ahead and submit your application. We'll get back to you. And definitely like, comment, subscribe. If there's any topics you guys want us to hit. The finance stuff has kind of been where we've been focusing right now just because of markets and everything else. But whatever you guys want, we're here for you, and we love talking about it. Let's become better each and every day. Let's become men of now. Let's become champions of now. Until next time, guys.